when we have exactly here, we have the recording and it's in progress. When we do the Q&A session at the end, we will actually stop the recording so that if you feel more free to ask questions. I'd like to start introducing myself and the project and this capacity building series that we are doing. My name is Rasmus Cherning. I'm with the Creative Business Network. I'm based in Copenhagen, but we're pretty much all over the place in some 80 countries since we are a network, and we have Belit based in Ankara helping us out from the Creative Business Network side. I'd like to welcome you to Epic We and our capacity building webinars and workshop. Epic We is a Horizon Europe funded project aiming to empower young people to participate in shaping European culture and their own future by imagining, creating, and exchanging cultural values and heritage through game making. Our webinar and workshop series will focus on several different core concepts of Epic We, as well as intersections with other fields, obviously. These sessions aim to increase awareness about the project and provide international expertise and perspectives on cultural games and cultural game jams. So that's what's in store, and we will continue from today, and I think we'll finish sometime in February next year. So there's a long series of great opportunities to learn and to exchange and to find contacts in this field. First of all, I would like to introduce Rikke Toft Nørgaard. She is currently working as Associate Professor in Education Design and Technology at the Danish School of Education at Aarhus University, focusing on the intersections of humanities, design thinking, higher education, culture, educational philosophy, hybrid pedagogy, and digital education. Rikke, I would love to hear, because you're also the leader of Epic We, you are running the whole project, but I'm looking forward to hear your first initial introduction to Epic We. The Zoom is yours, Rikke.
Thank you so much, Rasmus, and thank you for the very nice introduction. Let's see if I can share my screen and share the slides correctly. I think I need to ask Belit to unshare. Yes, thank you, Belit. And let's see if we can do this smoothly. No. Yeah. So
while Rikke is getting ready, I can say if you have questions, you can write them down by yourself, or you can also note them in the chat. We will take them at the very end of the presentation. So just so you know.
Yeah, and I think, Rasmus, if you can help, you see my screen correctly now, right?
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Great. Thank you. Yes, and as Rasmus mentioned, I'm the Epic We coordinator and scientific lead of this Europe Horizon project that is running from 2023 to 2026. And I have the great pleasure of trying to opening up the project and the webinars for us all before giving the floor to Conceição Costa from the Sorbonne University that will take us through some of the state of the art that we have been delivering as some first results. Here you can see the consortia, which has 12 partners kind of scattered across Europe within 4 domains. So within the domain of, let's say, public engagement, cultural heritage, creative industries, and higher education. And they actually form these 3 hubs. I'll try to introduce shortly the Epic We project, which is a designated complex Europe Horizon project. So if Europe Horizon projects are not complicated enough, then this is kind of a hyper complex project, which is nice, but also will make for a little bit of a, let's say, compressed and diverse presentation here. So Epic We is delivering results on the macro, meso, and micro level when it comes to culture and games and research, and I will delve into this in the presentation. We should take a little bit less than half an hour from now. So as I mentioned, we have this consortia. We have 3 cultural hubs, as they're called. I'll tell a little bit more about those. one in Denmark, Aarhus, one in Hilversum, Netherlands, and one in Óbidos, Portugal. And then we have what is called meta partners in the project, so Creative Business Network, KEA and Meet, that are kind of delivering on this meta level, not in the cultural hubs, on the public engagement side of things. It's a 3-year design-based research and innovation project. It has these 12 partners, and we are trying to delivering the results in form of a new cultural innovation ecosystems, a new way of working together in these cultural hubs, a new kind of event type called cultural game jams, and new cultural artifacts called games through and for culture. So kind of trying to compile it all here. You can see the 3 levels of the project, and the main achievement of the EPIC-B project is on the macro level, this delivery of a new kind of quadruple helix cultural innovation ecosystem. So an ecosystem where partners work across sectors targeted at what could be called cultural innovation. So adopting some innovation models and transforming them to be specifically targeted to the cultural domain. On the meso level, we have the EPIC-B cultural hubs and cultural game jams. So these partners come together across higher education, creative industries, cultural heritage, and youth, and work together in these cultural hubs, represented by all partners, meeting in the middle, and then setting up these cultural game jams. And then on the micro level, we have the actual cultural stuff that comes out of the cultural game jams. So we have this positioning game making as a new innovative, participatory, empowering practice of culture making, and we have youth coming into these game jams and creating games through and for culture. And you can see the expected result in some nice numbers to the right, and this objective of the EPIC-B in the middle. So taken together, the macro, meso, and micro level constitute this kind of complex multi-level model for cultural innovation, where game making and culture making are fused, and partners are meeting in the middle. All of this will be delivered as open research and open publications, both on the EPIC-B project website, which I will share a link to, or someone will share a link to, which is already open and you can kind of sign up, and then the EPIC-B resource site, which will be more formally launched during the spring, where all the models, the game kit, the games, and everything else are kind of published in the open domain. But for this presentation, I will try to kind of just open up the whole capacity building webinar series and the whole project to us all, to see what will be going on until February in the different workshops and webinars. I made a nice slide in the end, so if there's some parts of the project you are especially excited about or interested in, you can kind of pinpoint the webinars or workshop that will be specifically relevant to you, even though all of the webinars and workshops, of course, will be totally epic. So, as briefly mentioned, on the macro level, we have this focus on creating this quadruple helix cultural innovation ecosystem, and working and coming alive through these cross-sector partnerships. Again, on the macro level. This innovation model builds on the quadruple helix innovation ecosystem, and Kariannis will come and give a webinar later on in the series talking about this and bringing it in contact with the cultural innovation quadruple helix ecosystem we are building in the project, and I think something exciting will come from this. What is particularly proving potentially powerful here is the inclusion of youth as one of the partners, as an equal partners, establishment of youth advisory boards. There will also be several webinars, workshops that actually have youth from the project coming and present their view, their take, their thinking about how it is to be involved as a partner in the project, which also will be very exciting. Then, so that's the government, that's the public part, will be the higher education research institutions. So we have a university in Portugal, Netherlands, and Denmark joining in as the government part of it, or the academic research part of it. Sorry, the government part, the public part is, of course, the cultural heritage institutions that are more or less public funded, museums. We have a digital archive, we have a very let's say, classical big museum, Aros in Aarhus, and then we have a municipality, the UNESCO World Heritage City of Literature, the municipality of Obidos. So very different cultural heritage partners on the government side, and then on the business side, we have the quite big partner, Filmby Aarhus in Denmark, and then some smaller game partners, game company partners in Hilversum and Obidos with Battleship and Dropstuff Media. All in all, when we look across the literature and how we try to practice in EPIC-B on the macro level, is to specifically, so we did this report, it's on the website, there will be a webinar on it, but we did a lot of reading and a lot of practice, pulled together experts within the domains, and to achieve this cross-sector partnership in a way that is meaningful and valuable, both in culture and industry and research and for youth. We found these kind of guiding principles that we will delve more into in the webinar targeting this domain. But just for now, something that is perhaps valuable to discuss or reflect on is that we really need to kind of develop new modes of knowledge, so new methods. So we're working with like speculative design or poetic methods, or even having the creation of games as counting as innovation objects and research objects in the EU project. So new ways of delivering and publishing both research and innovation that makes sense to all the involved sectors. Of course, as already mentioned, new ways of engaging each other in more democratic, participatory, and co-created innovation ways. Often we stay within our own silo or our own sector, and then we hand stuff over to each other. But here we really try to meet in the middle and co-create everything we're doing, which is very challenging, and create new kind of needs for a shared vocabulary, shared visions, and shared values. That also takes a lot of work, but we think something worthwhile will come out of it in the end. And then also to ensure diversity, this kind of intermingling of very many different methods, this multi-method approach. So we both, of course, have some impact measurements. We have some quantitative data across the 360 youth, the 84 games, and so on. And then some kind of very, very qualitative data where we have, like, let's say, small game exhibitions or individual voices in very qualitative ways. Lastly, which is the next level, is to kind of connect this kind of sectorial innovation model to these local cultural hubs. So kind of dragging down this somewhat generic model, the abstract model, and make it into kind of a living lab or on-the-ground practices. And we will actually also have a webinar workshop on living labs with contribution from someone from ENOL, the European Network of Living Labs, and of course also someone running one of the local hubs. So just to sum up before jumping to the next level, we have on this macro level a coming together of sectors meeting in the middle. So you have these 4 arrows or this little windmill towards the middle, and then everything we do and decide and create or innovate or research in the project is happening in the middle to create a more kind of balanced innovation model between, let's say, arts and humanities on the one hand, and design and technology or game making on the other hand. So these are the 2 dimensions here. And then youth or students on one level and kind of research university on the other level, and actually having them equally decide, have an equal voice. Of course, there's all sorts of issues from this practice, but this is what we're working towards when we create this new innovation model on the macro level. Then on the meso level, this kind of is brought to life, enacted, practiced in everyday practices in these cultural hubs and through these events, cultural game jams, which we have 12 off in total, 4 in each hub. We just finished the first round, the first 6 game jams, and now we are kind of booting up to the next round of game jams. So again, on the meso level, the cultural hubs, the cultural game jams, we have 3 hubs. We have finished the 6 local cultural game jams, and now we are booting up to these 6 local cultural game jams where we'll try to share practices and connect with each other more to also see how this model works in practice, so to speak. Yeah, so the 3 hubs, Aarhus, Hilversum, Obidos, trying to enact this as an everyday practice. How do we meet? Where do we meet? What does it mean to meet? What should we decide? How do we keep our speciality, our expertise, and how do we allow ourselves to meet in the middle and get transformed by each other? How do we get over ourselves, so to speak? I think that's the language we use at the moment in the Aarhus Hub. How do we get over ourselves to meet in the middle? And how do we open ourselves to be transformed by each other in ways that might feel quite uncomfortable, that might seem quite strange? So we could take a concept such as innovation within cultural heritage institutions, within creative industries, and within research institutions, and within youth, means quite different things. So what is it actually we want to innovate? How does that look? And when do we know if something is innovative or valuable? So there's a lot of the discussions going on, and these discussions are going on through these cultural game jams to see if it's actually worthwhile all the trouble. Is something new actually emerging? Is something exciting emerging? How does it look when the youth make these games, whether game jam with artworks or digital archives or bookshops or a lagoon or whatever they game jam with, as is the case in the first 6 game jams. So again, we will have a workshop webinar on the Living Labs and the Cultural Hubs domain, and of course some of the other webinars and workshop will touch on this as well. But just again to draw some immediate principles from the literature and the expert practice of this, what is kind of prominent importance is to actually have this Living Lab as a quadruple helix transformer. So one thing is to talk about it, another thing is to experience it on your own body as a partner and through your everyday practices and live through it. And so these Living Labs, these cultural hubs, are for living through our own innovations, like walk the talk, practice what you preach. We need to be able to perform this ourselves before kind of giving it to others. Then we also have Living Labs as this cultural meeting space we also talked about. So actually being open towards the strange, the otherwise, each other's strange practices, and try to see what we could actually do in the middle that we cannot do on our own. If we can do it on our own, there's no need to meet in the middle. So what is it we actually can achieve if we set up a game jam where we are equal partners with university, with youth, with a museum, and with a creative industry partner? What is it we can do that we couldn't do on our own, or if we just invited each other in to each other's spaces? Then we have Living Lab as these cultural knowledge creators. So when we set up a game jam, when we invite young people in to game jam with cultural heritage artworks on the wall, for example, through using game design and game technology tools, and then in the end show and play each other's games across the sectors again, what happens? What new knowledges emerges from this? What could they be used for? How could they inspire the game sector? How could they inspire the cultural heritage sector? How could they inspire research? And how could they perhaps inspire new educational practices in higher education? That would be questions we would ask each other and see what is the potential here. Is there a sweet spot, or is there an expert sector spot? What is it that emerges from this? Then we have, again, Living Lab as a living culture. Again, basically, is living through this for 3 years, meeting several times each month, on-site, online, in these kind of third spaces that evolve when we meet in the middle, to see how we start to think differently see each other differently, hopefully also in a valuable way, appreciate each other more, appreciate each other's expertise more, but also appreciate what we can do in new ways together. So that, again, all of this, EPIC-V also stands for empowered participation and so on. So how do we empower each other? How do we empower youth? How do youth empower us? How do creative industries empower cultural heritage, and vice versa and vice versa? So all these kind of interconnections. Then all of this, of course, leads to the EPIC-V cultural game jams, where we meet up and host these events together. We have a process we are testing for that, which is quite appropriate, called the EPIC-V process. So we have experience, play, imagine, and I cannot see 2 seconds here, right, and create. That leads to the expo, the games expositions, and we have the creation of cultural worlds and empowerment in culture that we are aiming for. These we have 12 of, and they are kind of, right now we are making the final iteration of the Cultural Game Jam kit, or the playbook, that you will also gain more insights into in some of the workshops and webinars, and the Cultural Game Jam format as well. And right now we are working with these dimensions. We have the phases, so kind of a classic convergent, divergent design phase that we then integrate with art practices and storytelling practices and poetic practices through the role cast. So they take on different roles in the game jam. Some are the artists, some are the designers, some are the storytellers, some are the coders or the crafters, and so on and so forth. So really trying to, again, the game jam itself being a meeting in the middle that hopefully should produce games, produce thinking, produce voices that are quite different than if they were game jamming in something that was not a space of cultural heritage or not a space of culture. And if they were game jamming in other kinds of processes that were not targeting this, ideating games through culture, so using cultural heritage as a game making material, and games for culture, that is creating games that has a voice, have values, cultural values, societal values, that want to do something in the world. So the game made in the game jams are also the young people's voices having a say into the cultural institution, having a say into research, and having a say into industries about what games they envision, how they want to feel, and so on and so forth. Just as an example, again, just to also perhaps sense a little bit how we are also trying to meet in the middle, even when we are doing flyers for the events or communicating about the events. So this is also kind of an aesthetic language. So you can see here the flyers from the 2 first game jams in Aarhus, where they spent, the Cultural Heritage Institution and the creative industry partners spent quite some time in figuring out how to make a flyer that actually communicated both in equal valuable ways, so communicated the cultural heritage of the art museum and the technology, design, game angle on that from the creative industry partner. I think they actually succeeded quite nicely. So going down onto the micro level, and on the micro level, we have the quadruple helix practiced every day as a cultural hub towards a cultural game jam as a local event, positioning game making as a new form of culture making, and producing a range of games through culture, using cultural heritage as a game jam material for culture, positioning games as cultural artifacts that has a voice, that wants to say something, wants to express something in a certain domain. And we have the Game Jam kit that just showed you briefly on the green ones. And then we have a total of 360 youth producing 84 games. And so 6 of these games will be further matured by the game companies, and we are just starting that process as well. So again, just giving you a slight feel for some of the games produced and how they might look slightly different. We can of course discuss that in the Q&A, and you will also gain further insights into this in some of the coming webinars and workshops, where the young people actually themselves will come and talk about some of their game jam experiences, have showcased some of their games and show the value and meaning they found in it, or lack thereof. So just to give you a little bit of a glimpse, so this is one of the games produced at AROS in Aarhus at the very first Game Jam. It's called Create Your Legacy. And they were at the golden age paintings, as they're called in Denmark. So kind of old paintings in the young people's minds at least. And they saw these kind of war paintings, and they were quite surprised by the fact that some of the sketches made for some of the war paintings were actually made in the field. So the artist standing there in the field trying to make sketches while there was a war going on. And really surprising, because when you look at these old paintings, it's often very static, it's very peaceful, and suddenly they kind of came alive in a new way, because they suddenly saw that there was perhaps someone standing there trying to capture this and not getting killed. So they made this game. You can see this tinfoil horse, and there was also some tinfoil rocks to hide behind. So you are trying to paint a picture. There's a very ugly horse there. Paint a picture, but when you were painting, you could not see the war, because you were immersed in painting the picture. And then when you pressed another button, you could see, and there might be soldier riding towards you, trying to kill you, and then you had to duck between the tinfoil rocks. In the end, you would probably die, but then your work of art would be exhibited at the museum, as you see on the last painting there. So that would be one example. Another example would be Hammershøi's, a very, very famous Danish artist called Hammershøi. Hammershøi paintings are quite empty and eerie, and has this green coloring to them because something going on in the paint. And they really thought that Hammershøi's paintings were quite freaking them out a little bit. And again, often they are positioned as very peaceful, tranquil, wonderful Danish design elements, but they thought they were more kind of horror-like. So they made this horror game when nothing is going on, but just the fact that nothing is going on, there's just some sound and some light, you get more and more creeped out, as they did by the Hammershøi's paintings. So they were trying to recreate that emotion or that sensation in the end. Last example before jumping to the end or the opening of the webinar series was Goose on the Loose from Johannes Larsen, a very classic painting of some goose on the beach, just standing there. But what we see here is also, again, perhaps a little bit like the Hammershøi painting, and a little bit perhaps also like Create Your Legacy, that there's another kind of aesthetics to these games. There are another game mechanics, other kinds of stories. So this game really tried to capture the aesthetics of the painting. So the aesthetics became more painting-like or children book-like or whatever they saw in it. Capture the mechanics. So the mechanics were all about flying freely, experiencing nature, and quite concretely, what you had to do with your body and the mouse was to pretend you were flapping your wings to fly in the game. So also something new happening there, and you couldn't win it, but you could wing it, I don't know, perhaps instead, and just trying to experience the painting in a new interactive way, that when you went back to the painting, you had this flying sensation in your body that transformed your experience of the painting. If you signed up for the webinar, you will get the slides, I think. Otherwise, you can also go to the EPIC-V website and find the stories about the Aarhus Game Jam, the Obidos Game Jam, the Hilversum Game Jams, and then you can actually get access to all of these weird or less weird, beautiful or sketchy games that are out there from the 6 first Game Jams. And I can also share some of the links to the website and some of the stories as well in the chat when I'm finished. So all in all, taking this macro, meso, and micro levels together to this kind of very complicated model, why would we do that, and what do we hope kind of come from this? So again, some of the one of the things we are also really working towards is that everything is published online, also even though it's not finished. So we have these messy results or messy games, and we will publish them when they are made, because it's a arts-based project and a design-based project, research project. And so these kind of iterative loops to become more and more wise, less and less stupid, do something has more and more value. We need to kind of put it into the world and discuss it both with you and with ourselves and across the sectors. And we can only do this if we show the messiness as it is happening. So we're really trying to put this on the website, the EPIC-V project website, as it happens. And also when it's launching formally during the spring, the resource website. So the first games, the second games, and all the sketchy games here, but also, of course, the more matured games. We openly, under Creative Commons, also publish the whole Game Jam kit, all the methods, so people can take it and transform it in any way that makes sense. All the stories and narratives that are coming out of the sectors, like what do they see, what is of value, what is of less value. So really putting it out in the open as it's happening. And of course, also it will stay there, hopefully, after the project has ended, to inspire in different ways. We are also trying to again map it. So we are halfway through the project now. And so this is also us offering capacity building in the open. So this is at the same time for us and the world. So we are inviting guests in, like Ilias Karyanis on the Quadruple Helix innovation ecosystem, or someone from Enol on the Living Labs, or someone like Anna-Kaisa Kultima that are kind of leading when it comes to Game Jam to capacity build in the sectors. But we are also capacity building on the outside. So also trying to then bring into contact or discuss, have an open discussion with all of you, with all of the world, about what we are making in EPIC-V, and how this might be transformed to have even more value when looked at from like the audiences or participants from the sectors, and also, of course, world-leading practitioners or researchers or experts coming together and just kind of trying to discuss and experience in the open. So again, this is also part of the openness of the project. And as promised, you can see I tried my best to kind of map workshops and webinars on these different levels, so we can kind of, I want only stuff on the Quadruple Helix or the macro level of the project, then it's webinar 4 and workshop 5 that might be of most relevance. Of course, some of the webinars and some of the workshops touch on multiple dimensions, but that's just a good thing. Very last slide. So something that also I'm kind of wondering, and the project is wondering, but we could perhaps wonder about this together today or during the webinar and workshop series, is how to make EPIC-V part of our common future. Not that EPIC-V wants to take over the world, but it wants to play with the world and contribute to the world in whatever sense makes value to the world. So again, here we could ask on the macro level is if we can use something from EPIC-V to create these more cooperative partnerships with and within culture, where we meet more openly in the middle and not own each other or try to dominate each other. On the meso level, if we can actually try to integrate this and enact this as an everyday practice in collaborative ways, where we are friends in and of culture, perhaps meeting in the middle, and then and having events such as cultural game jams or other kind of cultural events where we work together to set them up and carry them out. And then, of course, on the micro level, what kind of new tangible and intangible cultural heritage comes out of this? What new cultural artifacts might be created? How are they innovative or valuable, knowledgeable? How do they count as research and innovation? And of course, also, could they position perhaps even games as cultural heritage in their own right? Could game be art exhibited at the art museum and so on? So this is we have of course learned a lot from the first half of the project, and we are now trying to share more and more. We feel we are less stupid and less enough stupid to start to share something without seeming entirely stupid. I don't know how to frame this. There's a Jantelov in Denmark, so we are trying not to pretend we know too much, but we know a little bit, and we want to share that and discuss it with you. This capacity building webinar and workshop series, and we are just super excited to do that. I think that would probably be my ending sentence here, and giving the floor back to Rasmus and Belit. I'll be there in the chat to discuss everything that comes up, and I know we have a Q&A session after the next epic presentation, I'm sure, which will be Concessao State of the Art. But back to you, Rasmus.
Thank you, Rikke. Thank you very much for this presentation and introduction to Epic We. And yes, write down your questions. I'm wondering about speculative design, what that is all about, and also the challenges around co-creating and having a shared vocabulary with youth and industry. So thanks a lot, Rikke. And now, Concessao Costa, you're next. You have a PhD in Communication Sciences, Media Studies from Universidade Nova de Lisboa. You are, just like Rikke, an associate professor, but at Universidade Lusófona, Centro Universitario de Lisboa, and you are a coordinator, researcher at CICANT in Lisbon, Portugal. You are a lecturer at bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and doctoral degrees at ECATI or ECATI. So thank you, Concessao, for finding time to present for us. I would like to remind all of you that we are recording this, but we will take off the recording once we have the Q&A going on, and that will happen right after Concessao's presentation. Now, Concessao, the Zoom is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to share with success, I hope. Okay, are you seeing my screen? Everything is okay? Yes, okay.
We're also seeing the following slides. I don't know if you can.
Okay.
Try and press right next to the plus minus size. Yeah, exactly. Let's see what happens. Yep, perfect.
Okay?
Super. Now it's perfect.
But it goes to the end. Okay. Sorry, I start from the end usually. Well, thank you very much, all of you that are listen to us from Epic We. And after these beautiful images that Rick shared with you about paintings, about cultural game jams that are in place, of course, it's very difficult to me to show you a lot of images because I'm talking you about research and about the foundational research we did in the beginning of our project, that is the state of art. And state of art in what? It was a long state of art in game making, and of course in game jams, with crossing these all categories. We are interested in finding more about co-creation practices among our partners, ourselves, and I mean cultural heritage institutions, creative industries, higher education institutions, and of course youth citizens. So we decided to cross all these things and to do a systematic literature review. So, okay, this is not changing. Okay, so as first activity, of course, we have the research questions of the project that are related with this I presented before, but we did a collaborative activity with all partners involved in the project, not youth, and I will talk about it later. And we asked the partners to fill these post-its about their concerns, their questions about the project. And as you can see, higher education institutions put a lot of questions, you know, very, very typical. So if you are not from higher education institutions, okay, be a little bit patient, but I will not talk anymore about this. And as the method we followed, that is Prisma 2020, we of course need to put some research questions, specific research questions for this revision. And as I said, we use these Prisma 2020 statements from Page et al. For those who didn't know about it, and you can go to the report that is already on the website, or we can find on the internet, and it's a method that is related with giving some credibility, using intercode variability, etc., some validation and replication measures. Okay, so our first questions were, we are interested in finding if there is a conceptualization of cultural game jams. Because as Reki told before, we are in fact interested in the cultural game jams with cultural heritage partners. So it was very important, this question for us. Another question is what processes and tools we can find on sources, on the literature about game making and game jams, and that also involve youth participation. Another question is about who are the main stakeholders and participants, because in game jams, usually we consider participants the ones that are doing things, that are creating games. But of course, there are the organizers, and there are typically the game industry presented there. So we are interested in knowing more that this common sense that we already know about the big success of of global game jams that are the most known game jams. And after, of course, we need, because we are in a research and innovation project, we need also to know if there are innovation frameworks in these studies that are related with game making and game jams that we can use at maybe a macro level, as referring to the quadruple helix. And another important thing is about values. Of course, games have values, games are culture, but what about values? And for those that follow game studies or in game studies or develop games, we know most of the times we don't think a lot about representations in games or what values, because we are just playing or we are just creating something that others want to play. We don't think a lot about values like the European values, you know. Another thing we want to know is what the authors of the articles, of the sources, say about positive and negative aspects of game jams. And of course, because we need to empower youth, we need to know more from the literature about tools or resources or processes that were used or not for youth empowerment. Okay, and I will go very fast in this point, just to say that in this systematic literature review, we used two kinds of sources, scientific publications, of course, and as criteria for inclusion, peer-reviewed articles written in English and published in the last 20 years when it started. I mean, from February 2002 and February 2023. And we also used external sources. Why? Because most of these external sources were not published in an academic senses, but could be reports from European projects, reports from game jams, white papers, etc., that could be also very useful to our researchers. So typically, they are not peer review as an inclusion criteria. They could be, but they were electronic articles written in English and also from the last 20 years. And we have pre-selected sources. And the pre-selected sources, since I'm talking about external sources, we found the DIGRA, because it's a very important association on research of games. We also have looked for the H2020 and other European projects. Also partner suggestions and proposal. The proposal references were included. Within these about the scientific databases, ICM, because it's the ICM digital library has a lot of resources, a lot of publications on games, as games started to be a very techy thing in the beginning, I believe. So also Beyond, because Beyond is a library where we can find several articles, 1,000 articles from a lot of publishers, and GSTOR because it is from the humanities, and we position this project also from the arts and humanities, I think. So we tried several formulas within these databases, and we adopted this one that was, of course, related with game jam, but also game making. And you can ask why not looking only for game jams? Because we want to be sure that in game designs, the game design processes, in a typical, development, long development, as it is for commercial games, for instance, we can find something useful from design tools or frameworks or ideation tools that can be useful. And of course, we used youth or young or teen variations of youth and culture or cultural, and also community, because we want community and culture are indeed related, or innovation. And okay, this is our departure to do a search on the databases. Just to be briefly, but this is the typical representation of the Prisma diagram flow. And just to tell that from, as I said before, in the identification phase from the scientific databases, we found, as you can see, almost 2,000 records. Most of them from Beyond, of course. Most of them are duplicates. So we eliminate, of course, these duplicates. We found less from the external sources, and also there is a process of duplicates, removing, or records that are not illegible. And in the screening phase, I will not go in details, but we have typically two phases. That is the first one when we got familiar with the keywords and the abstract, and we decide with not with only one research, but after you can go to the report, we decide what we will include or not, what we can eliminate. Because as you know, doing searches inside every database is very different. So sometimes the keywords or the title or the abstract does not represent well the article, and we need to deal with all these things. So at the end, we found the articles that in fact we analyze it, and that are included in the analysis. And we have 68. 37 from the scientific databases and 31 from the external sources. Okay, and you can say, woof, 68 is not a lot, but we need to read. Of course, all the researchers need to read these 68 articles. So it was funny in some way. Okay, we did this intercoder reliability because in screening one, we did it with two researchers, and we have values of average kappa and agreement that are okay, the same substantial, I mean, the same for screening too. And what did we use as methods? We use Ryan. That is an online tool where we did the first screening of sources, and after for the screening too, and for reading all the articles and decide about the ones that are illegible, we used then NVivo 14. That is a content for content and systematic also literature review. So we create a coding guide, and this coding guide was created with our partners. Everyone did contributions, and it was the top-down approach. And after, during the coding process, of course, a bottom approach is used because some new categories emerged from the data. Okay, so now the results. Yeah, okay. You can put questions on the chat if you want. Okay, about the results. Okay, this is a word cloud. Most exactly with 1,000 exact words, not with stemmed words in our files. And okay, it's nice, but because it's nice. No, it's not because it's nice. It's very helpful, I believe, for us to see if we are in the right direction with our in our analysis, and because it's word and not sentences, but you can see there are values, design, game jam, research, people, development, process, innovation, digital, etc. Value, students. Why students? Because most of the articles refer or the game jams or game making refer to youth as students. Okay, it's a fact. So students are, it's a big word here when compared to youth. Okay, so about the first research question. Okay, it was very good news for the project, and because we did find okay, cultural game jam, coined. So we didn't find it. So having EPIC, we with cultural game jams. Okay, it could be very good, very trendy, and could be very focused on what we are doing. But of course, we found cultural themes. And in the first column, you see the number of articles, and in the second column, the references, meaning the how many times from a particular sources cultural themes in this case are mentioned. So we found cultural themes, cultural heritage, European cultural values, and regional culture. And I will highlight from this one the question of game jams and cultural heritage, and particularly that is a very known game jam, the Sami game jam that took place in 2018, and it is considered as a tool for heritage. And I'm showing here just one game, and I would like to read this phrase that is from the IGO: "Fly through the Sami land as a Rieko," sorry, because maybe I'm not saying it correct, bird, "while humans take up your space." So it is one of the 6 successful games, and it's particularly important to look at this paper and to look at these games, because another important thing is most of the articles that talk about game jams and games made during game jams are not, in fact, showing or put a link for these game jams. But we found the game jams, and we found the projects, and it was very, I believe, very inspirational for all the EPIC team. Maybe it's something like this that we want as an outcome. Okay, about tools. Right, already showed you some protocols, some tools that are in use, that are created, and I would, from our analysis, I would highlight the Serious Game Jams manual, several ideation tools like the verbs, nouns, and adjectives, and particularly a VNEA variation from that was researched, and because there was a team for the participants that was extinction, and so they used cards, but they use also sentences about extinction in order participants could reflect about it. Another interesting that could be adapted is Grow a Game tool, because it's related with value conscientious design. And I will not go into more detailed explanations, but the use of cards with physical cards or digital is quite common, and we are using also this type of materials. About another kind of tools, this framework for applied game jams from Wright et al. It was a very important mark, at least in my own evaluation, because it is about all this cycle. I would call it cycle or first iteration of a game jam, and we can focus from the beginning in what he calls the problem space. That is, what is the ultimate goal of this game jam? We need to think about it. And and after about the jam design. We need to have logistics. We need to have a guiding criteria. We need to prepare everything. And about jam delivery and outcomes, we have the game jam. And we have after the game jam. So typically, and I like it, at the end of a game jam, we don't have games, we have prototypes. We have prototypes as games. Most of the time, we have prototypes as games. It's very, very important to say it, or experiences. It could not be games in the traditional sense. It could be a more immersive experience, maybe related with games as arts. Okay, but we have some type of prototypes. And after, and this is very, very useful for serious game jams, I believe, and also for cultural game jams, we decide, and that's what we'll do on EPIC. Should we develop the games? What games should we develop, etc.? What more can we do? Do we publish? And I would like to add something more that is about this process we have in EPIC, of this ambition of creating or trying to create new models, a new ecosystem that could be a business model or something similar to it for the creative industries and the cultural heritage institutions, okay? And also including youth, because youth are the society helix in our project of the quadruple helix that Rick told about. So at least for me, but of course you can read and decide. This is very, very important framework. Okay, stakeholders and participants. I will go here. Okay, this is a graphic from a matrix that did the intersection between the category participants and stakeholders in all our 68 sources, and we cannot see all the cultural heritage institutions crossing with the categories, because there is almost nothing to see. I promise you. You can verify on the report. But one first conclusion that is not very surprising is that students, because they are called students, we are using here the terminology of the articles, of course, not ours. So students from higher education institutions in particular, but also children, adolescents, youth, young adults are referred, but at least extent. And we have also game developers and researchers, call it as participants. And when we talk about stakeholders, of course, all these participants are stakeholders, yes? Because if they don't want to participate, they are not motivated. We don't have any game making or game jams. But okay, the literature in general separates these. And of course, from the organizers, you have higher education institutions, we have governmental institutions. Of course, if there are, for instance, public universities, they also could be here, but it's not the case. We mean other institutions. We have the creative industries that are working with all kinds of participants. And also, as a stakeholders, we have also children that work. About the cultural heritage institutions, we found some collaborations with students. So, because our project is also related with empowering youth, and in a simple way, I would say to cultural heritage co-creation and appropriation and consumptions. We need them to be an audience and also co-creators. Okay, there are a lot to do in EPIC when we have seen this. About innovation frameworks. In fact, we didn't find a lot of innovation frameworks. VISE is one of them. The Quad-Helix model didn't cross or didn't appear in any of other articles. It was a source that was put there on the analysis from our proposal references from our partners. And I will not talk about it because Rek already told a lot. But we find the Polish gaming innovation ecosystem that is quite interesting because they put co in everything to remember us that we need, like in the quadruple helix model, it's about synergies of all the partners and synergies also empowering youth, but also listen to every partner and cooperate the best we can with every partner. This is about it. This is not about separating things or this kind of thing. And of course, for the Nordic people, the regional Nordic game program years ago, and the Norwegian state, some countries, like the Nordic countries, developed policies to support game development, and also game development that is for serious purposes and that aims to protect local cultural heritage. Okay, and about values. We found, of course, same frameworks, some practices that use these sensitive game development, value-sensitive games in several forms. But some of them are not for game jams, but for game-making processes in education. That that have 6 months or something like that duration. We find also societal issues that are addressed in game jams, namely the question of gender bias or the lack of women in game making, and also in the game industry, that is okay, still these gender gaps that are not particular of game jams or game making industry. So there are some related with this. Okay, about positive and negative aspects of game jams from the sources. This is not very. These are comments, of course, of the organizers of the game jams, but positive aspects are, of course, and I'd say to you, to developers, to game enthusiasts, are about gaining new skills or developing skills further, and skills related with, usually they can collaborate with the industry. So it's very good to work not only with peers, but also with other peers from the industry, game developers that are more that have more experience. So most of the people are in fact people that are students or autodidacts that they are interested in game making. So there is this kind of opportunity to look for a new job in the future. About the negative aspects, some authors talk about a lot of competitiveness. Not a very well-being experience, in the sense that in most game jams, in this framework of 48, 2 days, 4 days, people don't sleep, don't eat properly. Maybe it's time to change it a little bit. And finally, I'm a little bit, I don't know if I have a lot of time, but I think I have some time yet, about tools and resources for youth empowerment. Well, in this literature, and I need to say again, it's literature about game making and literature about game jams. And we didn't see a lot of warning or empowerment or concerns related to empowerment of the participants, being their youth or not. But of course, in some articles, there are conceptualizations of empowerment, and we know there are also several conceptualizations of empowerment. But for Kinula et al., that I found useful, they consider in this context empowerment as collaborative design, and I will read because it's from the perspective of a school. Collaborative design work in schools through value co-creation, leading to increase youth participation, meaning teachers listening youth voices and incorporate them into game design. It doesn't seem to me, it could be empowerment, but it's not very horizontal participation. There are the teachers and the students, and the teachers put all the things together, the youth voice. And we teachers, parents, etc., we do it a lot of time. Want to give power to the youth, but in fact, we don't listen to them, or if we listen to them, it's very, very difficult to change it because we are adults. Maybe we don't want to consider them, their voices, as equal. And I'm saying it because I'm also a teacher, and it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult to balance what is the power from them and what is our power. I hope we have a lot of time for discussions, but I would highlight these points from this systematic literature review from our analysis. Serious game jams, protocols, and tools are very useful for cultural game jams. We have a lot of the most well-known are the global game jams. Of course, we can learn a lot from global game jams, but we have this series that is related with a particular theme. So we have a restriction here, but design is about restrictions sometimes, not a lot, but a few. Another conclusion is that in serious game jams, if you are organizing game jams, there is this 2 days, 4 days typical framework where people don't sleep, don't eat properly, etc. And I believe it's true. I should believe. But in serious game jams, we need to have pre-game jams activities. We need to prepare them carefully. And because we are, our citizens are youth, we need to prepare these cultural themes very careful. And it's not easy, but I believe we'll do it in each iteration, as Reike said. And we didn't find frameworks for innovation and synergies. In fact, I believe it's all about these game jams having 22 years, something like that. So they are very, very new compared with other projects, and they are always been seen, or most of times been seen as frivolous activities, something to engage youth students in coming to the industry. So we need to use in order to respect innovation resources from other sources and apply it. So no one from our sources, and of course we didn't research all databases in Dualga. I would like to say it. You know what databases we research. So this kind of synergies, what are the positive and negative aspects, what did the students think, etc. It's not very researched. I'd say in general, from our sources, researching game jams is almost the exception, because it's very difficult in a short time frame. So we try to do some. We are trying to do, of course, in EPIC, to advance also the how to do research in this. So very teeny moments of game jams. And at last, yeah, I need to finish. Youth need to be more empowered. So I believe it was the contribution of this study for all the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Conceição Costa, for this really impressive going through all the different papers and telling us what is the state of the art. And I have lots of questions, but I think we should leave them to the participants. And so while you're getting ready, and maybe Reike can select the questions, I just want to remind people before you head out that this is actually a series of workshops and webinars. The next one is on Monday already, Monday, the 25th of November at 2:00, and it will be about games for and through culture. And it will be introducing the games for culture and the games through culture concepts to the participants. So that's on next Monday with Mary Flanagan and Susanna Montgomery and Marina Rossi. Please register to the event. But now let's, we have about 10 minutes for some questions. Reike, do you want to grab one of the questions in the chat here? We have several on European values and also other stuff. So go ahead, Reike.
Yeah, I think
before we start, I'm very sorry. I will stop recording for a moment now,
Yes.
so everyone can feel free to express whatever they are feeling.
No reason to be shy.
Yes,
Exactly.
thank you. And
Recording is over.
Conceição, perhaps you can.
If we have any last minute, I wonder if now we're recording again, if we have any last minute comments or questions from Reike or Conceição. It's Reike, you might want to conclude this. I have already encouraged all of you to join us again on Monday, and in the future we're continuing until February with these capacity building workshops and webinars. You all know about that, and you can find how to register in the chat. But Reike, you have
just summing up and looking forward, perhaps super short, and I'll keep an eye on time, Rasmus. So one thing is we just had our mid-project evaluation, internal evaluation, and one of the things pinpointed there was actually as having the greatest potential, being of the biggest innovation potential, but also biggest kind of value potential, was the inclusion of youth as fourth partner and as equal partner in the project, both now, but also when we give something forward. One new thing that was not actually in the original project proposal was the constitution of youth advisory boards within the 3 hubs. So actually having youth in the Cultural Hub, participating at the organizational meetings alongside the business partners and culture partners and research partner, having an equal voice, however annoying that might sometimes be. You can also see in several of the webinar series here for our capacity building, they are actually present. So M. Hansen will come and talk about diversity from the youth perspective. We will have the Youth Advisory Board talking about how they experience empowered participation and being game makers and culture makers, and so on and so forth. And for the next webinar, we have Mary Flanagan that wrote a very seminal book on values at play and values in play, coming to, and is an advisory board member at EPIC-We, coming to talk about it with us, think with us about the value aspect and how to integrate and express values in games and through game making. That's also going to be super exciting. So yeah, so I'm just really looking forward to not speaking the next time, but just listening and learning and engaging a lot. Yeah, thank you, Rasmus and Bille.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the participant. Thank you, Rikke and Conceição. See you, hopefully, all of you, or many of you, on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.